Yes, so I have gone back on my word again. I said I was moving on to biblical sites, but as I've been finding the information for those videos, I keep on bumping up against other information that's backing up my previous work, and I don't just want to just delete these images for you because there's some of the best and better than the images, which proves everything I've been talking about so far on certain videos, and actually backs them up even more. I won't talk too much. It's all been done before. It's just to let you know, I suppose, that you can go to my Google page and check these out further. They're actually massive, these images. I've actually gone in and found the largest ones and the best and cleanest images possible for you to go look at. And I was actually looking at, I've been watching many of my videos, and it's actually unbelievable the information that I've been putting out, right? There is nobody else that comes close to breaking down the doors, on history anyway, that comes close to the stuff that I've been putting out, right? And actually, when I go look at certain sites on YouTube and Google and Facebook and what have you, I can tell. I mean, I could even show you if I really wanted to, just how much they've been having to deal with this. And look, I'm not this intelligent. I can tell you. People keep saying I'm a genius, and look, I'm not a genius, okay, at all. For some reason, I'm being used, okay, by a higher power, which is obviously God, okay. Now, the reason why it would be using me is because I don't care what people think of me, right? I've never been one to follow a crowd. I don't care about designer gear. I've got a £10 phone, and I've actually got a lot of money, right? And I wouldn't, and I don't embellish any of the information that I put out there. I don't care about subscribers, right? Yes, I like you guys, and I like, putting the information out there. But it's all free. There is no Patreon page, no nothing, right? And this is why I'm being used and being given this information. I won't get into it again. These are the dolmen structures, which I showed you. They were built from wood and mud. But here's another artifact on the floor, which was clearly made from wood. It wouldn't have been rock, because this thing would have weighed it would have been a right lump of rock to stupidly put in this hole. So it was obviously lighter wood, which is metamorphosized, being underwater. And look, by the way, in the last video, people went off the radar when I mentioned the biblical 40-day draining off of the water in the flood, and I said a day with the Lord is 1,000 years. Well, guess what? The Bible is true, absolutely, but we're talking about thousands of years of history that's been put into a few pages. So we're only told what we need to know, which is like when I got on about the pre-flood generation, yeah, the pre-diluvian world, like in Genesis, when it tells you when God looked down on the earth, and saw it was nil and void, before creating the antediluvian era. We wouldn't need to be told more than that. Anyway, I'll zip through these images, and you can go to my Google page and look at this. This was obviously a wooden rim around here. You can see a little gap there, so it's not a rock cut structure. And this is obviously turned into calcified, metamorphosized mud rock. Was this once metal, or with a metal cap over it? It seems to be. It's kind of blue and green. And you've got this over the top of it, maybe so they could hammer it into the hole and keep the cold out and what have you. Insects maybe, I don't know. But this image is interesting because as this has turned into mud rock, as it's all been underwater, and building up like things do on the bottom of the ocean. And it's all the mud from what they were smearing it in, because it was, a wood structure, and they smeared it in mud. And as it's ran into each other, look, what I'm getting at, this may in fact have been a window at one time. I'm not saying it had some glass in it, it might have done, but as all this mud has ran into it, it's just become one wall. And they will tell you that this is actually a carving or some stupid language that they will come up with. This might even have been a window that was like made later, and this is the same. So you've got a square window and a round window, so it's like rainbow, isn't it? This mud rock, they have these down as being called cart ruts, and to me, I've looked at these over and over again, and there are some cart ruts, and I can tell you some of them have turned into mud rock in very recent history, but this stuff is from a different era, because there's no footprints or horse hoof prints in between these, and the up and down hills and the width of the wheels can't have been carts. So this was indeed some off-road vehicles, right? And there won't have been one of them, will they, just riding around the earth? Okay. But, this is another one that's labelled cart ruts, and it's clearly not. This was obviously some type of structure or a rail system. This might have been a platform, I don't quite know, but it's labelled as cart ruts. I'm just showing you that they're not all cart ruts, even this one. And I've looked at this many times, and it appears to be some type of mud fossil. This actually, it looks like some type of spine. This is actually quite large, is this, right? I know it's difficult to determine how big some artifacts are. That's why I sometimes put images with people in there or something at the side of it. It's actually quite big as this, but look at it, it actually, I think it is a spine of something. This will have been the lungs, but I think you can see what I'm getting at. This is in Spain, this site here, and this is labelled as cart ruts, and it's clearly not, is it? I mean, how would you get your cart ruts through that? I mean, just look at this. It looks like some type of structure, huge skyscraper or something that's collapsed, fallen sideways, and these are just where the girders were, various things that went into constructing a site like this. Again, you can go check these images, they're all massive. It's this that I'm getting at. When I found this, I thought, my God, this looks like a vehicle that's been creating some of these vehicle tracks. It just looks like a off-road sled, banana boat, something like that. And these were seats. Can you see this? These were the seats, and you would sit in here, and it even has some cushions on it. It even looks like it's been upholstered. There's even holes there on the end of that one. These will have been cushions, and it's just been filled in from being underwater, and filled it all in, and you're left with an imprint of some off-road vehicle or something. Again, these images are big. Go and inspect what I've just been saying. This is Sampetia, Bolivia. The ancient alien crowd put this on many a times, and this was obviously some type of spring, something that fired something, I'm not quite sure, but they've got that down as a rock cut structure. It's up there, and it's all just a collapsed structure that was built from girders and all sorts of things, and it's now just mud, right? And even though it's on top of a mountain, it's full of sand. It's sand and mud. So that, again, this can't have happened in 40 days, can it? More like 40,000 years. Yes, these are wires. And when I found this, it said it's ancient. I'm not quite sure. These look like girders. We'll just take it as being recent. It's the floor that I'm showing you here. It's no different to the stuff in Peru and all the mud rock. You know, the imprints of technology that I show you. I'll move on because I'm not quite sure about it. This one could indeed be recent, but either way, if it is, this is where iron girders once held this roof up. There's some left of it there, and it's all gone now, and it's no different to the stuff I show you from the ancient sites. You can see the imprint of the technology that went into building this, and all you're left with is the sand, right, that went into the concrete that ran out on the floor and created a hard surface, right. So that just backs up. Anyway, this is in India, and they call this a rock cut structure. So as if you would walk into the middle of this field and find the only boulder and carve this thing. Ridiculous. It's obviously something that was built. It's metamorphosized, calcified mud rock built from whatever material. It's not rock cut. This one here, I was actually surprised. I found a big image of these. It looks like this side was something technological. There's all types of buttons and things on the side of this. It's very strange. I've shown you this one before, so you can go inspect those images. This site's slightly blurred, but this is known as a rock cut structure, and again, it's just the imprint and the rusting away of girders, which is where all these square holes are. They're just where girders were that propped up this thing, and all these lines, right? And as it's been underwater and collapsed, you're just left with an imprint. What I'm getting at is these sites that look like this, if you took an hammer and bashed an hole in there, it might appear to be rock, but if you bashed an hole in there, it will come out and just be like dry sand. It's mud, silt, sand, right? From the events that I've been talking about, all of it is. So there's some more images for you to go and inspect. This is obviously something modern that sank to the bottom of the ocean, and as this thing rusts away inside here, because it will do, it will leave, and you know, this will build up around it, and if this eventually came to the surface, it would dry out and turn into stone and look like the things that I point out to you. The reason why I'm showing you this again is because when I made that video on the antediluvian submarine, people went mad. But nature does not make things in rectangle blocks, right? So it looks like that this could have actually been a shipyard, if indeed this was a submarine. And just because you've got all these rocks back here, most rocks on Earth are, you know, are made rock from being underwater, right? And build up, and they turn into rocks as they dry out. Because the reason why I put it in, you can go and look at the imprints of what this thing was built from before it turned into rock from being underwater, right? It was this site, and people says, well, this area is actually made from granite. Well, I don't think it is. It looks like it. It looks like sand, doesn't it? Like compressed sand, like I got into about the last video, right? But even this area, what they didn't actually look into is that this area is actually free from the main structure, right? It's free from it, so it's been built later up against this thing, and then it was flooded and turned into mud rock, right? This is in Peru, and we're going to move in here because this thing looks like it was built from you know, it's not rock cut, right? You can see the imprint of girders or wooden lats, and you can even, if you look back here, right, you can see the imprint that this indeed was something else, and it turned into this material. All this stuff in Peru, and then later civilizations encase it in blocks, right? Can't tell what I was showing you in that one. Oh yeah, this is Ollantaytambo in Peru, and just look at this stuff. I mean, if this does not look like something that was wood that then became metamorphosized from being under the ocean, then you're never going to figure this stuff out, right? this was once wood, and it's turned into what you see now.